Welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled The Digital Twin of an Organization, Bringing the DTO to Life for Financial Services. Today's webcast will be presented by Jeremy James, Managing Partner, Ownet Consulting, Jonas Holstart, Principal Business Consultant at Software AG, and Laszlo Bognar, EMEA Strategic Channel Director at Kryon. As we move through today's presentation, we invite you to submit any questions that you may have via the Q&A box, which is located on the bottom center of your webcast dashboard. We will address your questions at the end of today's program. In the event that we're not able to answer your question, your submission will be noted, and today's presenters will be back in touch with you as soon as possible. It is now my pleasure to welcome Jeremy James.
Thanks, Will, for your introduction, and welcome everyone to our webinar on bringing the digital twin of an organization to life in financial services. This is the fifth session we have held on the value of the DTO. So in this session, our focus will be on showing you the solution in action. Today, the session will be led by myself, Jeremy James, and Jonas Holstart and Laszlo Bognar will bring the DTO to life by demonstrating the ARIS solution. We have based the demonstration around a client onboarding process, which I will walk you through prior to Jonas and Laszlo doing the demonstration. However, before we get into that, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what a DTO is and the value it delivers. And finally, at the end of the session, we'll have time for questions that you may have. So let me introduce you to the DTO. The DTO benefits many different use cases, and we will be in touch on this later. However, one that demonstrates this well is digital transformation. Digital transformations are notorious for not being overly successful. They take a long time and tie up a lot of investment. However, not doing a transformation is not a choice, as your business will be at risk of being left behind. With the expectation that over 75% of businesses will have become digitally transformed by 2030, and probably more now with the changes to our businesses driven by coronavirus, the DTO enables success by delivering deeper insights faster and with less effort, as robots do the heavy lifting of modeling your processes, allowing people to focus on the value-added activities, such as analyzing and developing solutions. The robots are all able to capture and process the processes more accurately and without bias, enabling a better platform for decision making. So now on to what a DTO is. The DTO is more than a process model, more than a picture of your operations or a window into your world. It comprises all business assets, processes, organization, stakeholder, policy, standards, risks, etc. The DTO is a virtual representation of your organization or a part of it, and it enables different stakeholders to view the organization through their own lens while bringing understanding and knowledge from multiple perspectives. All this while knowing you are viewing the same information from whichever lens you may be looking at. Every element and its interactions can be visualized, analyzed, reported on, and can be leveraged to help transform, optimize, and control your organization. If done properly, it will, as mentioned, give deeper insight, faster, reduce manual touchpoints, i.e. no more of the modeling factories, and influence and inform how your organization is designed, operated, and controlled. Of course, over time, the organization will evolve and change, and the DTO will need to do the same. It will inform and react to these changes, reflecting and informing the design and optimization of your processes and organization. Finally, it enables all stakeholders to have a single version of the truth. You can get away from the my view of the process is, or this is how it works, discussions, or extroverts' opinions overriding others, and focus on facts. However, most organizations are not here and are still focused on keeping the lights on, with the majority of the effort and cost directed at making sure that operational processes are working and fulfilling customer needs, rather than on gaining insights and driving strategy to get ahead. As mentioned, the value of the DTO is to help us transform, optimize, and control our organizations. The innovators are doing this, and through the use of the DTO and automation, they are able to mistake-proof the operations enabling further investment into the future success, creating a virtuous cycle of improvement. I suggest we should all follow the innovators and move towards factually focused and informed decision making, empowering our staff at all levels and being able to justifiably expect effective and efficient processes and accurate insights into our businesses. As mentioned at the start, there are a number of use cases for a DTO. Whether on a digital transformation journey or looking to control risks, ensure compliance or create resilience and agility, there are multiple different ways that the DTO will add benefit. I should also emphasize that a DTO can be deployed in a focused way to drive a specific need in the business. And when deploying a DTO, this is the most beneficial way of doing it, rather than creating a program in its own right just for the sake of creating that DTO. And it's never been more true at this time as we look at our new business models and ways of working to ensure operational recovery and resilience as we move beyond the worst of this current crisis and we look to see how we can best develop our organizations going forward. So finally, before we move on to bringing the solution to life, there are a number of benchmarks that we and others have that show the possible big gains made through the implementation of the DTO. So just for example, as you can see on the screen, transformation effort and risk can be reduced by around 40%. Optimization costs can be reduced by around 30%. And from a control and audit perspective, they can be reduced by up to 50%. There are also softer value benefits around empowerment of people, increased collaboration, and improved customer and employee satisfaction. So the business case for the DTO is something that really can be clearly demonstrated. So now it's time to see the DTO solution and for us to bring this to life. So I'll introduce the storyboard before handing over to Jonas to do the first part of the demonstration. So we've based our demonstration around the client onboarding process. In our story, we are looking to model our processes, make some just-in-time improvements, and then create a DTO that we can use for ongoing conformance and compliance checking. We'll start by using process mining from multiple systems to develop a straw man of an end-to-end process. This will give us a level of understanding of the end-to-end client onboarding process. We will then use data analysis and root cause mining to determine where we have issues and gaps in our process. This will inform us where there is need for task mining to enrich the incomplete end-to-end process. In our story, we'll see that the process mining does not capture how the anti-money laundering checks are performed, as these are done by staff using web applications, Excel, email, etc. So what we will do is to deploy a number of robotic process discovery bots onto users' desktops to capture the tasks they are doing for AML. We will then fast forward 3 days and see that the RPD bots have discovered a number of tasks and processes that the users are performing. We will then analyze the discovered processes to inform our next steps. Further, in our story, through this analysis, we discover some just do it opportunities for automation using RPA. So we use the results from the task mining RPD bots to deploy that RPA for part of our AML process. Now, as our story continues, we will move back to the development of our digital twin for the end-to-end client onboarding process. As we have now mined and discovered all parts of our end-to-end process, we are now able to create our digital twin by bringing both the process mined and task mined processes together. We will then fast forward in time again to show how the actual executed process is conforming to the digital twin, enabling further improvements and compliance on a continuous basis. This will then end our story, but in reality, this will be an ongoing and evolving story of transformation, improvement, and control of the end-to-end onboarding process. So now to hand over to Jonas, who will demonstrate the process mining and analysis. by using event logs from multiple systems to develop an end-to-end model of the client onboarding process, which he will use to determine the need for the desktop mining and enrich the incomplete end-to-end process. So over to you.
This is Aris Connect, which is Software AG's business process management platform and forms the core of the demonstration today. The process that we want to focus on is client onboarding, and the process has a mix of tasks performed in systems and manual tasks that are not logged in those systems. So the recommended starting point to discover such an end-to-end process or front-to-back process is to apply process mining to get a good understanding of the structure of the process and then to identify the gaps and missing tasks. So how do we do this? By loading the log files of the various systems involved in our process into Aris process mining. Process mining will then crunch this data, bringing together all the information from each of the systems that underpin the process and turn it into a process flow. In Aris, we can then display these insights in various dashboards. So as you can see here, we have discovered 1,942 instances of the client onboarding process with an average cycle time of over 14 hours. So we get different types of information here in this dashboard. First of all, we have identified 8 different ways how this process has been executed. So 8 different variants. For each variant, we get how long this variant took in minutes, which is a column here, and we get how often the variant occurred. So the first variant occurred most often far. So this is very often the happy path to the process. So then we get the actual process flow on the right-hand side. So we start our process by entering the application in the system. We then check whether all the personal details are completed, whether the company details are completed, and then in the overall view, combining all the different variants, we can see that in some instances we went to this task. Often we bypassed it and went immediately to gathering the required customer data and documents. So then our process continues and ends when the AML check has been completed, and then we either open the client account or close the account application. So this is the overall view of our process, so combining all the different variants. If I want to focus, for example, on the first variant, you will see that now we have a different view of the process. And as you can see, it's the happy path where at the end we open the client account. So this information, of course, has been built off the back of log files of systems. Now, those files often contain more business relevant data. So I can, for example, here filter my process by product type. So focus, for example, on the type of product that has been opened, or even filter on the region. So the regions in the UK. On the right, we also have some interesting information around the participants in the process. So we get actual information about which users are performing certain activities in which processes and how long those activities took. We can look at it from a user point of view. So here it has been anonymized, but we can also kind of group it on a higher level and focus on things like roles and organizational units in a company, an organization. So this is the first dashboard I want to show you. The second one provides some more insights into the process, especially regarding cycle time. So we get our same variance and flow on the left-hand side, and then we look here at cycle time by region, first of all. You see here that this chart or widget has been color-coded based on KPI targets. So London is far below the targets of 800 to 900 cycle time, so minutes to execute the end-to-end process. We also can look at cycle time by account type, so it takes quite a lot quicker to open, for example, a capital deposit account than a current account in this example. On the right-hand side, you will see then the processing time per task. So for each individual task in the process, we see here how long that task took. all the way from some tasks that are very quick to the last one, which is called AML checks complete. So you can see here that especially in London, it takes longer to complete the process, but also to complete the AML checks. Now, what you also notice is that we capture in the system that AML checks have been completed, but we don't have any traces of the actual activity. So this here, AML checks complete, or on this model here, AML checks complete, this is an event that has been logged, but there is no trace of an actual task to perform AML checks. So the reason is that this is a manual task. So here we would need the intelligence of task mining or robotic process discovery to uncover the missing activity. Now, in some cases where the data set is very large, the AI-based root cause miner can help us to investigate for issues in processes. So for example, we may want to understand the common factors that cause a long process cycle time. So if I change the process cycle time to only focus on those that take longer than, let's say, 900 minutes, I can start a new analysis, have a look at the results, and then you will see some of the causes that resulted in a longer cycle time. So first of all, the location. It's obvious from our dashboard, but most instances of long cycle time occurred in London. Interesting is also we get a dimension of the user involved in the process. So where client onboarding 1 and client onboarding 2 are involved in the process, that process took longer. And then finally, we also have a similar view on the type of product, so the type of account that was opened. Now, in this data set, it is clear that we are missing important data. So what I want to do now is use task mining on selected users' machines for a few days to understand how they are performing the AML check activity.
Thanks, Janice. So now that we've developed our strawman end-to-end process and identified where we need to do desktop task mining to enrich the model, I'll hand over to Laszlo to demonstrate the RPD and RPA capability of ARIS, which is powered by Kryon.
Let us talk about task mining analytics, and how to deploy RPA, or in other words, digital twins. If I'm working in banking or financial services, my day-to-day job may include approving business applications. Applications for small business loans, business interruption loan applications, or even business mortgages, which means I need to check the company details they're applying for these loans or mortgages. I need to check the company name, the company type, the nature of the business, and so on. Very likely, I'm copying information from different sources like Excel sheet and checking the background of an applicant or company. I may want to check if the company does exist, if it's active, what is the nature of the business, who are the people running the business, if it's matching with the application. How about if this repetitive work could be mapped by a software to identify which of these manual processes would be a good candidate for automation? I have a software installed on my desktop, Process Discovery Robot. Let me start it. As soon as I have started it, it's running in the background. I am, as an employee, I know about the robot running on my desktop. I know I've been accorded. This robot takes a number of information from the user, including the whitelisted applications. The whitelisted applications are recorded. The robot takes a screenshot, takes the user interactions like mouse click or keyboard stroke, and sends it to a server. Everything what has been excluded, it's not been recorded. Let's look at, on the server side, how easy to set up these whitelisted applications. If I go to the console of the server, to the admin interface, you see there are two robots. One of the robots is recording. If I want to stop the robot, I right-click and quit, the recording stops. From that moment, everything what I do on my desktop is not being monitored. If I don't need the robot, these can be installed on another desktop in another department to identify processes. If I'm looking at the applications, these were the applications which have been whitelisted on my client, on my desktop robot, and those are the ones which has been excluded. It is very simple to set up a new whitelisted applications what I would like to include into the recording, like SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft, and I just put in either the application or the URL like microsoft.com, and as soon as I edit, it will be transferred to my client. In the discovery, these are the recordings which the robot sends in real time to the server. Let's look at on the server side, what is the information what we get out of all of these user activities, what the robot has been recorded. If I'm going to my console, this tool is for the business analyst. As soon as the recording has stopped, the process discovery analyzes all the recordings across one user, across multiple users, and find the processes and provides an overview about the applications which have been discovered, including the following information. It provides the process name, like the process 1, process 2, when it has been detected, what is the volume this activity has been repeated during the recording, by how many users, how many steps are involved, how many variants, so how many times this activity, manual activity has been done differently, the whitelisted applications in the console, what is the average time of the process identified, the frequency, when has it been updated, and what is the recommendation for automation. The tool can be used at least for two different purposes. First of all, automation. If we create robots, digital twins, the process discovery identifies the best candidate for automation. Secondly, the tool can also be used to analyze the current engagements and the user activities and map it against the compliance documents. So let's click on one of these processes to see what do we find from this newly identified user interaction recording. We see a process map. On the right, we see a dashboard. We see that screen, only variant 1 has been displayed. That's normally the happy path of a process. We can zoom in, zoom out, and we can identify the process first step. In this step, the user clicked 4 times, filled out form 4 times, and click 4 times, and we can go through the process until the last step. If we go back to any other steps, we can drill down and look at actually the websites or the applications what the desktop user was working on. Me, as a business analyst, I can easily identify by looking at these individual steps that this step was a client onboarding and the agent carrying out anti-money laundering compliance. So I know if I'm looking at 2 steps, that this process is an anti-money laundering compliance. The process can be renamed. Once the business analyst identified the process, he can even blend in individual variants. The variants identify the way the process has been executed differently during the recording. There could be a number of reasons for the different variants. For example, if we have executed the recording by end of the month or end of the quarter, perhaps there were different processes to follow. That's why we had different steps during the process. These can be easily identified by clicking on the step. If the business analyst decides to reset the start and end point, it can be easily done by train the robot. We can change the start and stop point of the recorded process. We have a tool to download these into different formats. We can download into an automation file. Once the file has been imported into Studio, we can go through the individual steps as they were identified as a process. The business user or the developer can create a robot by do it mode. It can create a robot in a guide me mode, a user can only execute the process as it has been recorded, and we have tools like exporting these information into a PowerPoint file or document to create process compliance from the studio as well. The individual steps in the process can easily be modified by appending or even to provide additional comments, the business logic to the steps. These can be done by the advanced comments, what you see on the left, variety of different comments. It includes .NET, Java, HTML, SAP, Excel, and very simple to modify the step flow and put in their business logic by moving different objects across and selecting the information what we want to use. If I go back to the studio, which is the heart for RPA development, robot development, or digital twin development, we have 3 different ways to create a robot. First of all, you can import a file from process discovery, like I showed you on the previous screen. Secondly, you can record an activity. The tool can be given to individual employees to record a process, which similarly can be mapped out to individual steps, like on the previous screen. And the third, by creating the robots by advanced comments. The second option for the process, which can be downloaded to, is a Word document to provide a process compliance document. Once we downloaded the file into the Word document, we get a detailed process discovery document about the process, which is customizable. All images and the tables can be changed. It's based on a template. Most importantly, it provides the steps executed during the process. And we have a clear understanding about the process itself. What was step number 1, which websites or URL we used, which object we clicked, how does the screenshot look like, and we can even put in notes like employee is checking background on company's house. Each step of the process has been documented, and it provides an as-is documentation of the process. The third option is download the details of the process into a CSV file, which then can be imported into process mining. To summarize, we have a great tool for identifying known and unknown processes by recording user activities on a desktop by using a discovery robot. The robot runs in the background. The employee is aware about the recording. Only the whitelisted applications have been recorded, and the process discovery comes up with an automatic mapping and identifying processes which are candidates for automation, but it also provides additional tools like creating process compliance document, but even tools to export information in the process mining.
Thanks very much, Laszlo. So now we've discovered the manual processes through task mining and taken a bit of a detour to deploy some RPA, which we did by using the data discovered by the RPD bots to create the processes for the RPA bots to now run. I will pass you back to Jonas to finish our story, where he will create the DTO by bringing together our models from the task mining and the process mining to create our digital twin of the client onboarding process. And finally, Jonas will show us how the DTO can be used for ongoing conformance, compliance, analysis to drive informed change.
Now we have an understanding of the end-to-end client onboarding process, including the detailed AML check step. We want to turn this data into a digital twin documented in the ARIS repository. So the first thing I did was importing the data from task mining for further analysis. So let's have a look at this dashboard to see all these different ways of executing the process. So first of all, we have the different variants on the left-hand side, similar to our process mining dashboard. Now what we get here also is a view on how long each of those different tasks took. So we have instances where a variant took only 3.7 minutes. We had somewhere the same process took up to 5 minutes. Now we then get a view of the actual process flow. So what you get here is a very similar view as in process mining. So for each individual user action, we get information around the system or the website where this was done. So this can be Excel, or a bit further, have an example of gov.uk. We get the name of the file in case of an Excel file. We get the company's house website, so the URL, and then we get some more information around what exactly has been done. In addition to this flow of our process, so covering different variants, we have some additional information. So we can, for example, focus on which percentage of tasks have been performed in certain systems. So here we can see that about 28% was performed in Excel, about 70% on the gov.uk website. So what I want to do here now is choose a variant which I want to document in ARIS as a best practice. So I choose maybe in this example, the quickest variant. And I'm going to turn this one into a process model in the repository. So I'll give this model a name. Choose the notation, so I can have it as a process model in the BPMN notation or in the EPC notation. And then I will just click OK. And this will generate a model for me in the ARIS editor. Okay, so I'm going to save this model, go back to my dashboard, and now focus on the end-to-end process, which we have discovered using process mining. So in this instance, I don't only want to document the happy path through my process. I want to, for example, cover the top 4 variants, which also will include instances where we have actually closed the account application. So I choose the top 4 variants, and I do a similar activity. So I will create a process model from it. So as you remember from our story in our end-to-end onboarding of the client process, we have identified a missing activity. So if I scroll across to the right-hand side, you will see here AML checks complete, which we have identified as an event that has been logged. So I would have to change this one into an intermediate event and insert the actual activity where we perform the AML checks. So in ARIS, this is quite easy to do. So I insert a task in my flow. I will give it a name here, perform AML checks. And the next thing I have to do now is, in fact, link this step to the model where we show in detail the user actions that have taken place. So I will create an assignment from my task here. Okay. And I'm going to save the file. So to demonstrate this now, I'm going back to the portal and I'm going to navigate to the model that I have just created. So here's our end-to-end model. And as you can see, we have inserted here the perform AML check. So I can navigate from here now to the underlying model. For a model such as this one, a recommended way to view it is using the steps view. So in the steps view, we can walk step by step through the process. So in addition to viewing what has been done, so we start here, then we get the first activity. We can also see the screenshot on the right-hand side, where we can see, for example, that in this Excel spreadsheet, we have clicked copy. We go then to the gov.uk company's house website, we click on companies and so on. So this provides you a good overview and a good basis for work instructions in your organization. Okay, so fast forward in time to where we would like to compare our newly created design process to the reality. What we want to do now is we want to use process mining and task mining again to get the data and do a conformance check. So with the conformance check, we compare our design to the reality. So first of all, what you see here is we have a conformance rate of 69% based on the data we have from the systems and from the user actions. We can see some more information around the conformance. So we can see things like conformance by location, or we can also focus on conformance over time. So here we can see, for example, that in our data set, the conformance rate has improved and increased in the last months, which of course is a good thing. We can also dive a bit in a bit more detail and focus on what conformance issues do we have in the process. So conformance issues might be, for example, a wrong sequence of activities, might be certain tasks that haven't been performed, or tasks that have been performed but shouldn't be performed. So those are all logged here, and I can get a bit more detailed view of it. So we have almost 600 conformance issues in those processes. So this type of dashboards can also be viewed side by side and in fact within the context of the model and errors. So if I just click on my diagram, you can see here my end-to-end process diagram, and I can bring the dashboards on the right-hand side here. So what we have here is the model on the left, the dashboard on the right. In this case, we have the conformance dashboard, but we can also look at dashboards around process performance. So together, both the design and these dashboards, they create really the digital twin of this client onboarding process.
Great, thank you very much. So we've now come full circle in our story of developing a DTO of the client onboarding process. We've shown you how we used process mining and task mining to build our end-to-end process to develop our digital twin of an organization. We also showed you how we use the output from the task mining to deploy RPA more accurately and faster than traditional manual methods. And we have shown you how we can then perform ongoing conformance checks against the DTO. So that's the end of our demonstration. So it's now time for any questions that you may have. Thank you very much for listening and hope you found it of value. And we look forward to answering any questions you may have. So Will, back to you.
Thank you, sir. So a reminder to those that are with us today, thanks for being with us, and please take this opportunity to submit any questions you have in the Q&A box. Just hover your mouse over your webcast dashboard, and you'll see that Q&A box lower left side. So guys, I'm going to start off with the following. What information is captured by the process mining tool from core systems?
So Jonas, would you like to take that one, I think? Might be...
Yeah, of course. So the key information we extract from our core systems are, first of all, a unique ID. So in the case of our client onboarding process, we capture a unique ID of each client application. Then for each application, we capture the different events from the system. So those events are very important and allow us to link this data from the systems to our tasks and our functions and areas. And then for each of those events, we then have timestamp information that allows us to analyze things such as the process cycle time. So this is the core information we need. But in addition, other information is extracted, which adds additional insights into performance and variation. So this can be, for example, information around user data, type of product, location, as could be seen in the demonstration. But the core, what we need is always the ID, the events, and some timestamp information.
Okay, the next one I have for you. Can the DTO be deployed quickly? That is, onto one process, or does it need to be a full organization? Excuse me.
Okay, I can take that one. So absolutely, it can be deployed quickly. You know, the deployment of a DTO is a little bit like how long's a piece of string. If you are focused and you scope down to a single process, absolutely this can be deployed quickly. And where it will give the most value in an organization to start with, and also to be able to prove that proof of value of the DTO, is by taking a use case where either there is pain in the organization, or there is a change that is about to take place that is going to impact a number of different elements within your organization. And by using the task mining, the process mining to create that DTO. You will get deeper insights. You'll be able to go through that transformation quicker and also bring out some insights that may not have actually been necessarily surfaced through traditional methods of workshops, interviews with SMEs. So absolutely it can be deployed more quickly. But the added benefit to that is it is actually getting a better quality of your process than you would do through traditional methods.
The next one, when you mention user data taken from core systems, does that include CID?
I think I can take this one. So in this instance, we didn't really capture any user data of, I think the core data we captured was around the employees that were performing certain activities. So in the client onboarding example, whenever in the system, for example, an account was open, the system captures the user ID behind it. So as you could see, this was client onboarding 1, 2, this was anonymized. So this is the type of information we would normally capture. But really what we captured depends on each system. So this was available in this example, and it always depends on what type of analysis you want to do. So do you want to look into the different people involved in the process, or are you focusing on, for example, the cycle time between different departments, but not on the user level?
And Leslie, do you want to expand on that a little bit with the task mining and how you are able to mask sensitive data as well?
Yes, so first of all, you have for the masking different, actually more than one tool. So in the process discovery, you can actually automatically map sensitive data, which means that you can actually turn on the process discovery during the process. So every sensitive data based on the tool will be actually masked. Secondly, we actually masking automatically user credentials and passwords, which means it's not been displayed, so you can't actually recognize it during the capturing process.
Okay, the next one I have for you. Sounds like there's a big advantage of using the discovery robots to create automation robots. Could you please elaborate on this?
I'm gonna take that one, if you don't mind, Jeremy.
Yep, go for it.
So definitely, so the answer is yes. So first of all, perhaps let me distinguish between the discovery robot and the robot that's normally being implemented for automation purposes. So when we talk about process discovery, within the solution, you have discovery robots, and these are deployed on employees' desktop for a number of days. The robot normally captures information from the whitelisted application between 3 to 5 days. And then the discovery robot can be actually moved to a different employee's desktop. So when you actually are looking at the results, then the automation robot, such as attended or unattended, is basically what you put in the data center. So if it's an unattended robot, and if it's an attended, then obviously on the employee's desktop. So the discovery robot basically being used to find the processes. The users don't need to do any specific activity, user activity differently what they normally do. So they don't have to follow the process. They can have breaks, they can use different application in between. So the solution actually identifies those patterns and obviously the process itself. And then the business analyst or the subject matter expert can select from their findings those processes, but then will be then put into the automation using the attended, unattended, or hybrid robots. So significantly eliminating many of the back and forth which normally happens during interviewing processes.
Okay, thank you. The next one, is it possible to separate the different elements of the DTO solution? Example, process mining, task mining, etc.
Yeah, I can take this to start with. So absolutely. And this is where we're bringing sort of different capabilities within the ARIS suite to be able to build the DTO. However, each of those elements in its own right has a lot of benefit for organizations. And so depending on where the use case is for an organization may depend on where people decide to focus in the first instance. So if, as an example, the use case is that you want to look for automation capability, you may decide to go with some task mining to look at some of those user interactions to automate. So you then will use the RPD, as Laszlo has just explained, to be able to find those processes, understand those activities, and translate that into automation. But on another side, you may want to be starting with business process management or bringing a enterprise management tool and business system for your organization to understand and gather knowledge. And that's where ARIS as a tool can add a lot of benefit by capturing all of your attributes, processes within your organization, and be able to allow people to collaborate, analyze, simulate how those different processes are working with all the different interactions and attributes of systems, data, product, risks, etc., etc. And then you have the process mining, which similarly brings live or historic data from your core systems up into the dashboards of the process mining tool and into ARIS as well, so that you can gather information of how those transactions are working against your designed process. So absolutely, they can be used separately, but by bringing the different elements together, that's how you create the true digital twin of an organization.
Okay. Next one I have for you. Is RPA used as foreign data feed or as a form of data source for process mining? Where is the overlap between RPA and process mining?
Jonas, you or me? Shall I take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I take it. So first of all, let me sort of separate between RPA and actually the process mining part. So when we talk about the user task mining, that's actually analyzing the user interactions, the repetitive manual tasks. That's when the process discovery, which is we call user task discovery, comes up with the findings. Now, if you decide to use this information from the manual activities and put it into automation, you could practically do that. But what we actually displayed and explained in the demonstration is that you take the results of these user task discovery and actually move the findings into process mining as a source of data. So to answer the question, yes, but it's not RPA at that point yet. It is basically a process we identified. And once you moved into the process mining, it takes the source as a log file, as an example, and we in process mining combining the existing log files and their processes, which we identified from the different systems, with the user task mining, which is a manual activity, which did originally not create any log files. And from the overall findings, you can actually create the RPA robot, if you wish, by actually creating the robots based on the end-to-end process or just some part of it.
Okay. Next one I have, how long do the discovery robots need to run on employee desktops during user task mining?
I guess that's me again, Jerry.
Yep, go for it, Laszlo.
So again, so I'm talking about live experiences and best practices. So normally we run the discovery robots between 3 to 5 days, depending on the number of user interactions captured during the recording period or process. And the reason why we actually have to run it, let's say for a number of days, which actually gonna be real time very soon or near real time, is that we don't capture everything. Remember, before we start actually the recording, we whitelist the business applications. So only the business applications which we know it's relating to a business process, that's what we're actually capturing. And then once the capturing has been completed, let's say after 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, those robots can be actually moved to any other employee's desktop to do the same to discover processes. Now, once the process, the recording process has stopped, then these captured data will be then analyzed using computer vision, machine learning, and the process discovery or the user task discovery comes up with a recommendation on the processes which have been identified during the process and gives a recommendation on the automation candidates, including the variants.
Yeah, and I suppose also to add to that, if you're using the task mining on a very, key process as an example, you may want to keep that task mining running on a continuous basis. And that's where the conformance element of what Jonas shared in the demo comes into it. So you can then compare how those people are working against the designed process. But you would not necessarily do that on every single process that you have or every single user. So there are different use cases with using the bots on the desktops as well.
Very good. Next one I have for you. What are the benefits of using task mining and running user task discovery on employee desktops compared to interviewing employees?
Laszlo, do you want to start on that? Or?
I'll take a step on it. So when you're looking at the requirements for a end-to-end discovery of a user task activity, and the current practice is you're actually using a number of interviews between subject matter experts or even business analysts and employees. And I know from the experience and also from the customers, depending on the size of the organization, depending on the process they try to identify, the process normally runs between 6 to 12 weeks to actually find the candidates, but also to document the process as is during the interviews. Some of the organizations, the larger organizations, especially if it's a complicated process, they actually spend 4 to 5 months. Remember, it depends on the process itself. Now, imagine you replace that sort of activity between the subject matter experts and the employees with a very simple installation of a software of an employee, which the employee is aware about. It's only capturing the whitelisted applications, so only the business applications which are actually relating to the process. And the employee does not have to do anything differently what they do. So if you remember the 3 to 5 days I talked about it, then after this recording has stopped, the process discovery analyzes the data across one user, across multiple users, and comes up with a recommendation. So basically we are talking about, let's say, a maximum of 10 business days recording versus 6 to 12 weeks or even 4 to 5 months, depending the organization. So the time saving and the resource saving is significant. And one very important point I've actually been hearing from clients, when they use the manual questioning or actually the interviewing process, they come up with their initial process mapping with one or few variants during that interviewing process. And then they identify, they have many meetings and they give it to the COE or for the RPA developers to start implementing the process or automating the process. Now, very often, that's the first time, once the process has been implemented and automated, when they realize that the process actually breaks because they've forgotten to consider variants and exceptions, because during that interviewing process that was not obvious. And we actually do it by a piece of software, and all variances and also the exceptions are being captured if it's been manual and repetitive and visual, and we actually map it out automatically. So when we stop the recording, the business analyst or the subject matter expert has a visual tool to identify the process itself, including the variants, and making a justified decisions about, yes, these variants need to be automated or not. So time saving and resource saving is significant.
And to add to that, I think the the nature of people is that we view things in our own light, and we also potentially will have different views of processes compared to a colleague or a manager, etc. And that can woolly the true process that is getting captured, the true as is of what is happening. To Laszlo's point, you get something automated and it breaks because we haven't found exactly what there is. The systems are completely objective and therefore are capturing the true process that is happening. And therefore you can make much more informed decisions when it comes to either improvement or moving to automation. So you've got not only the ability to capture it quicker, more efficiently, you're going to get deeper insights, and you will get better quality of what you're capturing as well. Jonas, do you want to add something on the process mining, because it is quite a similar story from a process mining and task mining perspective?
Yeah, it's indeed very, very similar. So I think it's really about two things. I think one is of course the speed, but also the quality and the kind of objectiveness of information you capture by doing this. So if I look a bit at the full life cycle, of course, interviewing is a beginning to start to understand the process. When you look a bit at the further life cycle, even for the kind of ongoing conformance checking, you would have to go back to the business to check how people are executing the process. So it's not a one-off exercise to speak with people, go in the business. So with process mining and task mining, this kind of manual work is just removed. And again, for the kind of the conformance checking, these are things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise without having process and task mining in place.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. We are at essentially the very top here of the hour. So we want to first say a thanks to everybody that has joined us on this very interesting webcast today. We also encourage you and we invite you to stay abreast of all of the digital programming that Software AG has coming down the pike. You can do that by visiting the events section under the About Software AG tab at softwareag.com. Of course, please take advantage of the contact information that is now up on the screen in front of you. With that, Jeremy, Jonas, and Laszlo, thank you so much for your time for the presentation today. Our program has now ended. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone listening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.